Thank you all for coming back here. I know it's the last session of the day in this room, but I promise you, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. We had great conversation, like in this room. You've been here for the last couple of hours. So we started from healthcare. We talked about sustainability and how it correlates with revenue growth and profit, and how companies are actually inventing new innovative technologies and solutions to really help save our planet, right? So the planet that we live in, our kids are going to live in, and yeah. So with that, we're going to open up conversations around how we're going to shop in the future, basically. Before I do that, I'd like to give a minute to each of my stage partners here to introduce themselves, and then we'll start diving into the conversation.
Thanks. My name is Kalokira, formerly with Estee Lauder, Estee Lauder companies, and I focus in delivery and program management and IT transformation.
And I'm Fred Pond, and I am an Avasant fellow, so I'm a retired chief information officer. I retired about 5 years ago from Columbia Sportswear. I now do a little bit of consulting. I have a couple of clients that I do consulting with. I'm on a couple of boards of companies in the Portland, Oregon area where I live. And I teach a leadership development program for the Society for Information Management called the Regional Leadership Forum. Thanks.
I'm Drew Martin, a professional golfer. Maybe you know that. In my spare time, I also do CIO gigs. I was at Sony, Lytics, Jack in the Box, and then about 100 days ago, I joined Jenny Craig, and you heard this morning maybe that I created a problem at Jack in the Box, and now I got the solution. So if anyone's interested, let me know.
And for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Shirin Alipanah. I'm a principal with Avasant. I lead transition management practice across retail, CPG, and manufacturing industry. So we heard Kevin's keynote, obviously, this morning around Omniverse and how it's going to evolve and how it's going to evolve the way we basically interact with each other, how we shop in Metaverse and virtual reality, and how we're going to build these virtual communities and how that interaction is going to happen in the virtual world. And as we move forward with all the new technology, right, that's coming up, like, again, Omniverse, like AR and VR, the lines between the virtual reality and the reality of our reality really is blurring, right? And there are three main components here, right? So there's, when it comes to retail businesses, there's in-store experience and a physical experience. There's digital experience, which is mobile and web that we've been using shopping for quite a bit now. And now it's the third one, virtual reality, and how we're going to provide, the businesses basically are looking into providing a balance between all three platforms. So, and then we heard, again, from Kevin this morning, what Metaverse really is, what Omniverse is. And what I want to kind of hear from my partners here is, what does really Omniverse mean to you, to your business, and what is your definition of Metaverse? So we're not going to pick anybody, so go at it.
Drew said he was going to do that earlier today.
We knew that, right?
Everybody else gets started, don't finish up. For me, I think it starts with the metaverse, right? I think if you look in the comparison to like the world, right, and the universe and all that kind of stuff, I think a lot of the companies are addressing it individually in a world setting, right? They're creating their own metaverse world, and they're creating an experience for a customer, and they're looking to build brand loyalty and other things involved, and we'll get into a little bit of the reasons, right? And then I think you expand that out to multiple worlds, cross brands within the same company or the same environment, the same ecosystem, and now you're getting into larger, metaverse, if you would. And I'm not talking about Meta or any of the ones who are kind of creating more of it for themselves, but the company's going to look at it like individual worlds, in my opinion. That's part of a metaverse that they create. The Omniverse, I think, is going to be a conglomerate of that, whether it's across industries or groups or all the verses together, right? It's sort of the omni fact is, all of us together, independently decentralized, running itself, having people be able to enter and exit as they see and get the benefit from doing that, right? So I think we're going to mature to a fully sustainable Omniverse, but we're going to start with our individual worlds and our individual universes, which is really the Metaverse.
Yeah, I think, Glenn, you hit a lot of good points there. I think it's an incredible opportunity for retailers. You know, we went through 25 years ago the web and e-commerce for the first time, and I think this gives retailers a chance to make a big difference. They have the opportunity to kickstart a whole new path and a whole new channel. You know, they've got wholesale channel, they've got stores, they've got e-commerce, but now how do you bring it together with this virtual world and make it able to flow back and forth? And that's going to be tricky from a technology point of view, but it's going to be a great challenge, and I think any retailer should be excited to build brand, build presence, and get started in small ways and in any way. And it doesn't have to be with your own verse. It could be leveraging one. I mean, there's been Second Life's been around for 15 years, didn't work, but you know, people tried it and people will retry it. And I think that's the opportunity that all people with product and brand have an opportunity to do with this, and they can take it wherever they want and take it at the speed they want, because you don't have to be fully integrated or doing things in many different verses at once. You can start small and grow.
Good stuff. Yeah, I think I like the framework this morning that said, you know, companies starting in physical, and then you get into, you know, virtual, digital, and then you get into augmented reality, and that's how it evolves. I don't think it's a switch or it's discrete levels. I think it's much more of a spectrum. And I felt for a long time that every company has a digital experience part of their product. You know, even products that traditionally had been very analog. So some examples are like Domino's. You know, Domino's I always looked at, especially at Jack in the Box, but they always had that model that there happened to be a technology company that happened to deliver pizza. So they got it very early on that, you know, part of the experience of something as analog as a pizza was the digital part of the experience. Same thing with Nike. You think sneakers and athletic wear, they connected it to, you know, your athletic stuff. Starbucks too, you know, coffee, very analog, but the whole digital experience. So I think some companies still haven't gotten that it's part of your product is the digital experience, but it's just the same way digital enhanced the analog physical product. I think augmented reality is going to continue to enhance the experience that you built on the physical, but enhanced with digital, and then it'll be additional enhancement of that through augmented reality. And it'll be very blurry, and companies will try different things like Second Life and NFTs and see what works and what doesn't, and eventually we'll without even realizing it, you know, be immersed in augmented reality. It'll be very subtle. Even today, I think people say, "Oh, AI is coming," and you know, NLP is coming. You don't think about it, but then everyone has Alexa or Siri, and it just becomes part of your everyday experience. So I think that'll be similar with augmented reality.
Okay, well, great conversation. Thank you. So I don't know how many of you have had a chance to download and read a report we published in April around strategy around Omniverse and why businesses, specifically in the retail industry, need a strategy around that. And some of the key players was actually part of Kevin's keynote this morning. So there were a couple, and I'm just going to read it off of here just to make sure that I'm not mixing them up here. So Apple, for example, is leader in immersive communication. We are looking at Amazon as the company who's actually leading the retail ecosystem in this space. Then we have, in retail specifically, BMW is using NVIDIA's Metaverse platform to create future factories and perfect digital twins to help remote working possible and more productive. And there are a couple other examples out there. For example, Jack in the Box. Let's talk about that. Last year, Jack in the Box implemented the concept of dark kitchens, virtual kitchens, where they provided this experience basically in virtual reality, right? Or the other one that we heard about is McDonald's, where they patented about 10 new patents in US to open virtual kitchens. So there are a lot of players out there, and some are actually moving much, much faster than other ones. But from that perspective, so what I want to kind of look at now is from Jenny Craig's perspective, or from Estee Lauder and the clients that, Fred, that you've been working with. How does Metaverse play into your strategy, right? So for example, from Jenny Craig's perspective, where do you see Jenny Craig go into Metaverse? What is the strategy around that, or what could be the future of that for you?
Yeah, so I think you have to start somewhere. And just to give you a little story about Jenny Craig, when I was talking to them, and I kind of recognized it's a very much a turnaround situation. What I did before I started interviewing, I went on the Jenny Craig program, and actually went into a center, and I was, here's my pitch on Jenny Craig. If you want to lose weight, it is the most effective program. The problem is some of the other things that get in the way, like the digital. So, for example, when I went in, first I went on a good website and got an appointment. Then I went in and looked at someone's back as she typed in all my information, which I could have uploaded ahead of time or set up ahead of time. Then she handed me a stack of papers about the program with cross-outs on them and substitute food. Then I had to check out my own food physically on a piece of paper again. And on the way out, she said, oh, there's an app you might want to try. So that's the starting point. And I was saying 2.5 stars, right? And so as good as the program is, to answer your question, where you have to have this vision of where you want to take things, one thing we'd say about losing weight is it is simple math. Calories in versus calories out, right? So easy. But what gets in the way? Behavior, psychology, support groups, all these other things. So to be able to take in all these other factors that actually determine whether you lose weight or not, and leverage stuff like AI, and anyone who's played with Noom, it's pretty interesting to me that they give you a lot of, hey, based on your answers and what you said, here's the probability of your chances for success, and here's what you can do to counter that risk. So that to me, along with, and I check this amazingly, no one does a simulation, I think, to be able to visualize where you're trying to go. No one does a simulation of what you would look like in the reduced weight of your face, of your body, and have that as an image. So I think the ability to kind of take the strong foundation of a good food program and amazing coaches, but wrap it around a digital experience, and then also leverage stuff like AI and machine learning and behavioral psychology to really make it even more effective than just a food program that has less calories than you would otherwise take in.
Yeah. I'm helping a couple of my clients and even my former company, Columbia Sportswear, and a lot of my pitch right now is be very tactical. There are 4, 5, 6 things that they have to get better at before they'll be successful at it. Some of it's tech debt. Retailers are horrible at retiring applications. They have more things hanging around than, I always couldn't believe, how do we get some of this off? It's just, no matter what transformations you make, things hang around forever. So you've got to get rid of tech debt. You've got to increase security. I know you're here, and I want to...
He's just saying that because John's here.
Trust in this world is going to be really important, because as you do these things, if someone creates an avatar in a space that aligns with your company and your brand and everything, and you mess it up, you're not going to recover easily, because the amount of information that's going to be given to you is going to be greater than we've always dreamed. We got to know the customer really well, and we use loyalty programs and other things to get there. This could lead the Holy Grail to how you really learn more about, because these people in the virtual place will be themselves, hopefully, mostly. They may be someone else too, but you will learn from that, and if you've got the right information around that, you're going to gain incredible, but it's going to require trust. I think you've got to start experimenting with NFTs, with cyber currencies, and cryptos. You need to build some of those. VR, AR things, you've got to start putting your toe in the water with all those things. And then one that's last but really important to me, you have to start developing and designing your products and your future products in a fully digital 3D way, because you want to be able to just drag it from the factory, if it's being made clothing-wise, onto the metaverse or where it is. And it's got to be seamless, it's got to look the same. It needs to be identical. And honestly, I don't know any apparel, and I know a lot of apparel and footwear companies from my work at Columbia, any that do it well.
Yeah, that's true. I would just add that the comment that both you guys are making, to me, is true to the strategy for Estee Lauder companies. Has been the customer experience and the connection to our customer, no matter how we're connected to them, through our traditional means or even in the metaverse. So, trust is another thing that I heard, you guys talk about. That actually, incidentally, is the barrier to people deciding whether they, want to buy an NFT or they want to buy a virtual product is trust, right? Do they trust the company that's offering the NFT? Do they trust the product that they're purchasing? Then they look for value in the product they get, or what they get to do with the NFT once they have it, But I think that's interesting to me, because that's the commerce side of the metaverse, right? And to me, that's what we're all in the business for as well, which is to sell our service or to sell our products. So to me, this is an extension of that customer experience. The strategy that we have needs to be fully thought out, fully looked at across the board. But again, we have a traditional track record of meeting our customers' needs and understanding who they are in the various digital platforms and store platforms. Now we have that extension and that opportunity to understand more, to your point, gather more information. They trust us, we trust them, and then we get a little bit more into offerings. Incidentally, your comment about the products and apparel, like I just got sent something literally yesterday from Ralph Lauren on the virtual experience, and then go shop the virtual store and go look and see if you want that pair of jeans. I don't even know if the jeans will fit, right? But I'm like, if they know my profile and they personalize that profile, and I come in with, this is the current me, my avatar can even represent myself. In this case, it's just a virtual interaction on my phone, but it could also explain to them, you're likely to fit into this style, and then you're less likely to have a return. You're less likely to have another impact in our supply chain that we really don't want to deal with. And so, it's just an extension of knowing more about you and us making a fit to your experience and providing a product that really meets your needs. So I think, we should look at that end-to-end journey in a lot of different ways, but I think it starts with trust and the customer relationship.
I think for fitting into that gene, we need to talk to Drew.
If you don't fit, it could be a lead.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I told you I want to try your program out, see how it goes.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing your insight on that. Let's kind of talk a little bit about the technology and infrastructure behind this experience, right? Let's look at it from organization perspective, what organizations need for security, for technology infrastructure, and also consumers. What type of technology consumers need to be equipped with to utilize this platform and then the experience this platform? So again, Fred, why don't we start with you, and then we'll move on.
Okay. So, I think wherever it goes, it's got to be super easy, and it's got to be available on any device, because you don't want to have any constraints around that stuff. And whatever the solutions are, they've got to be API driven. They've got to be easy to integrate with your PLM and with your other systems to build that ecosystem where things can happen. And it's got to be flexible enough that you can be looking at many verses. You do not want to be tied to just a single verse. And if you're a retailer, you always have an affinity or a negative approach to anything that's Amazon, because if you're a retailer in any sort of, they're going to be your competitor at some point, and they'll knock off what you do or not. So, that can eliminate one of those verses that you talked about and that stuff. So you got to pick the right ones and then and find ones that fit the brand of your company. So I think, like for Columbia, they're an outdoor brand. They're all about enjoying the outdoors. How do you stay warmer, drier, cooler, in the outdoors? So they're going to tie these things to how can I be involved with a verse that has national parks in it, or has hiking and doing outdoor sports and things in it. So they're going to look to those. They'll want to have a store that's next to a virtual Yellowstone Park celebrating the 150th year of the park this year. Or they'll want to look at Mont Blanc in Europe because that's a big thing there, and they have supported the Mont Blanc run for decades. So those kind of things are going to matter to them. I've got another client they make the premier noise-canceling headset for a pilot, both commercial or private. Niche company, but they're going to have a completely different strategy and approach because they want to tie it in to the pilot experience, whether it be commercial or private, travel, those kind of things, completely different than the approach that Columbia would take. So I think you've got to be able to be flexible in how you're going to approach this, and there's not going to be a roadmap that says, if you want to get here, you're going to follow these 3 steps. You're going to have to take a look at your brand, what it means to you, what are the important aspects, and how do you leverage that?
And maybe I'll jump in. I think, listen, if it's an infrastructure question, it might not be the most important. It sounds weird, but it might not be the most important question to answer up front, right? I think, we do what we all do best, which is we go to consultancy and we get some help and we understand how to set it up and how to drive it. But I think internally we have a lot of the skills, like you said. We know our brands, we know our products, we know our customers, we know the places to play. The barrier to entry, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit too, is on the consumer side. I mean, like, gamers are all set up for this, right? They have really cool computers, they have virtual stuff, they play in this world. They're the targets of people who are already buying NFTs and visual products and things like that. And so, I don't think they're going to have an issue, but are they our client, right? The question is, we need to make that better understanding of our consumer and our end folks before we start building stuff and putting a lot of money and investment into it. But I think that's going to happen either way. So the sooner we figure that out and the sooner we appeal to those new customers and the ones that are either our existing that we want to expand to a new way to play and have them play with us. The one thing you commented on, I'm just going to take the conversation a little further, is just the venue aspects. Like you said, with Columbia, you're associated with outdoors, parks, other things. Like for Estee, especially Clinique leading the charge on the NFT and virtual world, they already recognize we're part of fashion weeks. We're in beauty and fashion, and right, so they go to the decentralized fashion week setup, and they create and partner with, again, the consultancy. They partner with a local artist, somebody who knows how to create NFTs. They partner with an agency to create that environment and to create a virtual Clinique laboratory. And in the Clinique lab, we talked about this the other day, you have like 3 spots you could go and learn the history of the products and the environment and the connection to what's in them, because a lot of people care about that. And then you can also kind of try on virtual makeup try-ons, and it was around a new foundation launch, so it had a purpose as well. And last thing is you can connect. This is the bridge between the main world and the virtual world. Is you can connect with a live consultant, a Clinique consultant who can advise you like you would if you went out to a department store or anything like that. So I think the point being is, we know where we want to play. There's similar places we are associated with our brands and our products, and I think it's just playing in a different way. And it's deciding that we can make it fun and interactive for those who participate. We can give them another avenue to play in familiar places and talk to people and interact in different ways, and not just be in the metaverse or the virtual world. But I just wanted to comment that I think it's interesting if we start thinking of playing on our strengths and then applying it to the new technology.
True.
Yeah, just to build on that, to the question of what does it take to get to the metaverse, just to keep it real too. I think, on one level you're arguing with management about technical debt, about the 7-year-old point-of-sale registers and the need to upgrade that hardware, and it's, always people are looking at margins. So there's all those challenges. So I think it starts with, does management agree that digital is part of the product, the digital experience, and then by extension, will the augmented reality be part of that in context of every other priority you have with technical debt and other initiatives? So kind of starts there. The next thing I think is a culture of agility. I think there's a lot of comments we've heard today about no one really knows what's going to work. So it's really a matter of building that culture that tries things out, learns the lessons, adapts, and really finds out what resonates with the customer. And then if and when you get past, management gets it, and you have this culture of trial and error and innovation and experimentation, then there's a lot of cool technologies that are starting to come out, right? Like we always were familiar with CRM, but now people are wrapping DCP or customer data platforms and digital experience platforms and content management, so that there's all these package. Adobe's big in this space, right? Where once you identify who that customer is or their digital twin, you can start to present dynamically new experiences based on these technologies. So I imagine the offerings will be expanded over time to also extend your presence into augmented reality and other metaverses once you have that core in place. But I've made the mistake more than once of putting in some of these technologies, and I get to Jenny Craig, sure enough, they say they want to do a CDP. And there's a bunch of money in there. I said, to do what? What? No, I had it at my last company, and it's where I want to put it in here, but what is the outcome? So you really, we always have that tendency to jump into the technology without taking a step back and saying, first of all, do we believe in this? And I'd say the same thing was true at Jack in the Box, where we literally had a strategy pre-pandemic. We said, I guess there's digital table stakes, is what we called it. I guess we got to do an app because the other guys have apps. And that was literally, and it might be 1% or 2% of our business. And then, sure enough, COVID comes, and it's only drive-through, and this new thing, DoorDash, Postmates, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and suddenly, why haven't we had this done yet? We really need that. So remember the table stakes. So you really have to gauge. That became a great environment to work in because suddenly everyone got the urgency around. Okay, we have to be able to have a digital experience for our customers and do all the technologies around that. And then, to Shirin's point, just other things. Virtual restaurants becomes an opportunity. Dark kitchens. When management gets it and the culture's there, then you can start to put in the technology. So.
Yeah, I just want to comment. I think totally you've got to get the leadership, and I have trouble with that. I'm on a board of a retailer, and as a board member, I've brought up a couple of times, they need to start thinking about this, and management won't touch it. They are not going there. They don't understand it. We will keep talking, but you've got to get the organization aligned.
Right. Well, yeah. They don't know what they don't know, and they're afraid of unknown, right?
Exactly. They're frightened of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a question to the audience. Who knows what DTA stands for? DTA. Anybody?
Use it in a sentence.
What does DTA mean? Well, that was a sentence, right?
Yeah, tricky.
So anyways.
I want to sell my product, DTA.
Exactly. There you go. Anyone? Oh my gosh,
Winner.
yes. Round of applause to. Yes. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you for helping me and everybody else in this room. So next conversation is around looking at how companies, organizations are now moving from direct to consumer to direct to avatar strategy, right? So, for example, if I don't know if you've heard or not, but Zara has started this clothing line, a specific one that you can buy it physically and wear it physically, and they will give it to you in your virtual world to wear it on your avatar, same way. But they are not directly selling to avatars. They are still doing physical sale, the retail stores first, but they are giving you that as an incentive. So that's the beginning of their Metaverse strategy and how they are looking at all of this, and soon enough, that's how it's gonna start, right? Coming from Avatar, and then, hey, if you want a virtual clothes, then you can pay extra and you can own that. So from retail perspective, from different businesses, again, from beauty line, from weight management, food, and other retail businesses, do you see a use case where you would go directly to Avatar, right, versus the other way around?
I was just going to say your point before about the gaming industry is really years and years ahead of, and a good indicator where things are going. So if you're into that kind of thing, you know, there's EverQuest was a Sony property when I was there, and two things about it. You know, you could get points, and then you could buy things like a spell or a weapon, and there'd be hundreds of thousands of people at a single time in a single Metaverse game. This is 10 years ago. And then the other thing that came up was it was one of the first digital currencies studied by economists because it could not be influenced by government or trade imbalances or other things. So just within that, all the points that you would accrue was controlled by, you know, the game company. So that became a very interesting model where you could convert those game points to dollars for other people. They were fungible in that way, but people used them to buy, and so there was a lot of people selling direct to avatars there. So I think, don't know the answer, but I think that's a good place to look just in the gamer space because they're so comfortable in the virtual world.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was listening to Kevin make the comments after your amazing golf round, was around like the property and the real estate, right? Like, I don't know, but you know, I already have 4 properties, you know, and 3 of them are in Minecraft.
In Metaverse.
Yeah, in the Metaverse, exactly. I have a tree house, I have 2 castles, and I have my other house
In
in
Snoop Dogg's neighborhood, or?
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, it's just it's definitely an extension of that world, and you know, I think that's where the companies can certainly enter, both for advertising and promotion in the right setting, especially the sports and gaming environment. But I think the other aspect is like what you were saying is, you know, the incentivizing of customers to go to a new virtual world and a metaverse to allow them the opportunity to connect with the brand and get something. So one of the examples that we also did at Estee when they launched for the night repair, we were talking about this earlier, is, you know, a virtual bottle that they can attract to go to an event, and then they go in the bottle, and then there's a check mark that says they arrived, and they get the ability to get the NFT, one of 10,000 that were offered, and, you know, and then they get a product. They get products that they can have for a decade, a sample products, one time every year, you know, so they get entered in for those kind of contests and things. And I think that's what the customer's looking for, is not just the virtual product, but the physical product as well, right? So that can match it. In this case, there was also a connection to the avatar, where the avatar themselves gets a trait, and that's what you were getting at with the training. In this case, they got to wear the virtual advanced night repair. So their avatar had a glow, and it looked different, and it was sort of like the ability to, okay, well, the product works on you, and it works on your avatar. So I think there's that kind of, yeah, it's like a funny nature to it, but it's also like the fact that I think most people are looking to engage that their avatar gets something that's unique, tradable, collectible, and that they get something in return as well on the physical front.
I don't have a lot more to add to that, but I think it is true that it is an avenue. It's going to depend upon who the customer is, age groups, you know, things. I think the gaming, if you are in a target market where you've got gamers as a good size of your market, it's an easy fit, and it's a quick win, and those things. You've got to connect both the virtual and that, tying together loyalty programs, whether it's for that and these things, makes a lot of sense, and whether they're buying NFTs and getting points on that, or vice versa, they can use their points to do those things. You've got to make it seamless across there so that the consumer gets to have fun on either side of the world.
That's great. The other thing, a big question is around brands and the data that these brands are collecting, right? So using AI, all the other intelligent platforms and technologies that is available, they are basically collecting personal shopping histories, my Facebook likes, your LinkedIn likes and dislikes, the articles we are reading. Sometimes we have Alexa, and then they actually pick up the audio cues here and there. So there are a lot of personal data that are being collected to help deliver personalized and seamless experience to all of us, right, as consumers, which is great. I mean, we all love that. Like when we are shopping on Amazon, we love to see like our best, most favorite items like lined up on top. So that's great. But with that comes some challenges and issues that we have yet to solve, and we are still thinking about it, especially when it comes to Metaverse and Omniverse, where how do we build these human communities, right, in virtual world where there is that sort of a connection, when we feel like, yes, that's a personal experience that they're delivered towards me, and it's not something like creepy that's happening in this virtual world. And also, who governs this space? Who governs this platform? Like, what are the legal practices? What are the ethical processes? Like, who's the authorizing body, right? Like, a lot of things could happen. It's a virtual world, but yes, it's a reality of a virtual world. So let's talk a little bit about that, just a few minutes on what your thoughts are around that. And I know it's not solved yet, but there are a lot of thoughts around that, and how are we going to look at it, basically?
Yeah, I'd say two things on it. It's a great question. It's a tough question. We won't be able to handle it in the time, of course, and still won't get to the answer. But I would say what everybody wants, from a digital experience is they want it to be safe. It's a trusted environment. They want it to be dynamic. They want it to be omnichannel, seamless across. They want it to be frictionless, and they want it to be personalized, one-on-one. So regardless, everybody wants that. And to your point, we've said, there's always the cool and the creepy, and you want to balance that. And there's a famous article with Target with the pregnancy, where they could figure out based on a woman's purchase, if she was pregnant, like 99% accurate, then they would send all this, prenatal stuff to the woman, and of course, a lot of funny anecdotes about that, but women were creeped out. They hadn't told anybody, but Target was right. So they backed off, and they still sent offers, but they mixed them in with a lot of other things. So people liked it, but they didn't realize how personalized that offer was. As far as regulation and government and all that, there's no way, we all know, there's no way that government regulations and rules and laws are going to be able to keep up with the speed of the innovation. So I think it comes back to governance and around your values. And just like you wouldn't accept a set of financial books or an information security, a CISO's opinion of how things are going, you'd always want that oversight of, are we doing the right thing here? Financials, information security, privacy as it extends to the metaverse.
Yeah, I mean, it's the wild, wild west at this point, and I think anything's going to go for a while, and governments will slowly try to figure out what to do. But as we've seen with a lot of other technologies, they lag significantly, and then they will implement in very chaotic ways. And so whatever you're doing, you need to be careful, govern yourself, make sure you have a way to back out of anything you're doing, or if there's a problem in an area. And I think just keeping your own company's culture and ethics in what you're doing is going to be critical to how it will work well with your consumer base that hopefully already loves you and is supportive in those things, as long as you stay within that.
Yeah, I think maybe to just add, I feel like the technology itself will evolve, like we were talking about with the Omniverse and decentralized models and people being able to provide more data that they're willing to on their own, because we've seen that even when we open up social media, right? Like people probably put way too much information to begin with, right? But I think here's the thing, I want that to be driven by the masses and not by the individual companies that are creating their own metaverses, right? Especially those that are questionable on the use of their information. So I think there's opportunity here to promote it as a community, which is what you were getting at, and say, what do we want this world to look like when everybody enters the market in a more real way beyond what we've seen so far, and that if we could create a community and a governing body on our existing social media, and then maybe transfer that into a verse, and have it be its own living entity, and then that'll create a governing body that hopefully will be more independent and across multiple users and communities. I think that's probably where we should see it go and where natural evolution will take it. I think to your point, the equity of the company and the trust, you mentioned that too, is going to be critical that we establish that and that we don't patronize our customers, because we also don't know who they are. Sometimes we don't know if they're the same ones that are in our stores all the time and they just appear to be somebody else. But we could tackle that by just accepting everybody on equal ground and not, push them to an e-commerce platform and just allow them to experience the experience and build brand and loyalty. So I think that's going to go a long way. I think the technology will also evolve in a way that when we get to our web, 3, even though that's not the metaverse, but that'll be self-helping to secure the environment as well.
But thank you. With that, we are coming to the end of this wonderful session. I hope you all found it very informative, educational. We're all going to move up to our closing remark session in the main ballroom. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for my partners in
Thanks
crime.
for coming in.
Thank you for monitoring.